G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you, and it is so good to see two fellow photographers from the complete other side of the world. We've got Jeff and we've got Mozman. Now, gentlemen, can you tell our communities, some people in the chat here today know who you are and some don't. Tell the community a little bit about yourselves.
Well, my name's Jeff Neville, and I have a YouTube channel called Selective Imagery, and I started that off in 2022, and to just share my love of photography and what I do. I was always one that never wanted to share anything, and I decided, well, I wanted to get people off their couches, get them to blow the dust off their camera that's been sitting in their closet for 2 or 3 years, and get out there and get some fresh air and get involved and do something that they haven't done in a while. And while I was doing that, I was also participating in a live stream with Chuck Egan called Chuck Talks, and was part of his panel for quite a while. And we had he had two live streams a week. And eventually, unfortunately, Chuck took ill and wasn't able to continue the show. And I got volunteered to try to keep it going. And so I've been doing that for quite a while now, and we have two shows a month, first and third Saturday of every month from 9 p.m. Eastern time till whenever. And it's basically almost like Cheers. Everybody knows your name. It's just about sharing of information, doing presentations, educating people, doing rumors, talking gear, and just having a good old time. And we have people that you know that come on the panel. We got Roy Bixby, and we got uh, Terry, who's also in Australia, and we got John Ishii that comes on every once in a while. So we got a good group of people and very passionate about photography, and we welcome people from all genres and all types of cameras. We're not we don't discriminate against anybody. We just want to enjoy photography together.
Amazing. And Mozman, tell us a little bit about your journey to being a pretty big part of the Nikon and general photographic community in the US of A's.
Sure. I'm a hanger-oner. No, but seriously, my journey started in photography with my father. He was VP of an advertising agency, and his biggest client was Kodak. Grew up in Rochester, New York, the home of Kodak. So I was introduced to cameras at a very young age. My first camera, I think, was a Kodak Ektar 500, or not Ektar, but Ektralite 500. Just a little 110 point and shoot. But my father always had Nikons, so that's how I got introduced to the Nikon brand. And he would obviously, trail the Kodak photographers, many of whom would shot Nikon. So that's my origin story for photography. What I do professionally is marketing. I've been in marketing for about 30 years. Photography has always been a hobby, but I've also had the opportunity to do professional shoots for marketing clients as well. So mostly I do development marketing, but I do dabble in photography pretty extensively, and it's probably my biggest creative outlet as well.
Awesome. Can I tell a little secret though, Moz? I believe you might have a bit of a steam train fetish. Is it steam trains? I
I
think it's steam
do.
trains. Yeah.
I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about the steam train fetish? And also a quick shout out to everybody in the stream. There's already a ton of us here. I'll try and do a little bit of a shout out to you all after Tim tells us about his choo choo.
Um, I never grew up. No, I
I
spent
love it.
all my. I have an
And he
English.
had
My mom was English, so I spent all my summers in England. We had a house in England. I was very privileged to be able to spend, all my summers, 6 to 8 weeks every summer in England. And I had an uncle that was really big into steam engines, and he was actually, he had his own metal shop lathe and everything. And he built his own steam engines. So I just got interested in steam engines from a very young age. And there's a company in England which sadly no longer exists. It's called Mammoth, and they used to build model steam engines, real working model steam engines. And of course, throughout the years, I collected a few of those. Unfortunately, as I got older, left a lot of stuff at my parents' house. That stuff, was probably sold in a garage sale. But I've just sort of, in my midlife crisis, I've started collecting more cameras and more steam engines. So I don't know if you probably can't see behind me because of the split, the way the screen is split right now, but I have a display case with 4 or 5 steam engines in it behind me as well. So
I'm loving
that's
it. So
that's how I got into steam engines.
our next big channel is going to be steam engines of the world. Now, Mozman, someone, Gorsh Photography has said Mozman was also a talent in a Kodak commercial. Excuse me?
I was actually, I was. So I have a twin brother, and when we were, I want to say probably about 7 years old or so, 6 or 7 years old, my dad had that affiliation with Kodak. So we went to Kodak and we were part of a Christmas shoot for one of the Instamatic cameras. I can't remember the exact camera. And we had just to pretend that this actor was our dad, and we were giving him a camera for Christmas. And I don't know where we made it into print, but I do have some of the old photos from that ad, and I think I've shared those on Jeff's live stream or Chuck's live stream at one point in time. So yeah, I do have a small uh, part in a magazine ad at some point in my life.
It was nothing but the best for his fake dad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you've been connected to photography. It's in your DNA for basically forever. Amazing work. Now we have a question, and firstly, I'm going to try and shout out. There's a lot of people in the chat. We've got 68 people, which is absolutely amazing. I don't know where to start. We've got Baker SDZ, hi, Roy Bixby, J Blue, CSC Photo, AM Paul K. Gorsh Photography. Is that how I say that, Tim? J Photo Rod. Who else is
Oh,
here? Oh,
that is that is Gustavo.
okay. Gustavo, good work. David Stewart, Shrek Cole, Mr. Seth Miranda, lovely to have you in the house. Ray's here, fantastic, and so many more. We'll keep calling people out as we go. We've got Harv Videos, Wayne, Kevin Hawthorne, Fan CCD, of course, or Fan CCD. We've got Mookie MC, howdy Mookie, King Cruck. There's so many people here. It's absolutely fantastic to see you. Please make sure you hit the like button. Please make sure that you check out the other channels of these gentlemen as you see fit and give them some love. And also questions. Hit us with some QQQs. Now, I want to go back to that first QQQ that we've had for the night or day, depending on where you are in the world. Good evening from Mesa, Arizona. Question, do you think we'll get film grain and shutter angles in the next big Z9II firmware update? Well, my personal perspective on these things is Nikon's going to attempt to roll out as much of everything that's technologically possible to everybody. That seems to be what they do, and obviously some things come slower and some things come faster and some things are more complicated. But that's my take on that. What about you, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think that sometimes patience wears a little thin, and firmware takes a while. I mean, you don't want to have a camera that bricks after you get it put in your camera. You want to make sure it's been thoroughly tested. And I worked in engineering for 30 plus years of my career, and so I can tell you that firmware and software take an awful lot of testing, and you don't want to rush it. And better to be patient and get it done right. And I'm sure Nikon's going to get it right, and I think they're going to flow down or flow up, as I'm sure we'll talk about things getting flowed up hopefully in a future large firmware update, hopefully for the Z9. But it'll be done right, and it'll happen. We just have to be a little bit patient. That's all.
And Tim?
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think one of the things that Nikon has been really great at is providing, that functionality to across the whole line. I know the Z9 is, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, is lacking a few features that other cameras have, but for the most part, I mean, Nikon has really delivered when it comes to functionality and firmware for those, less expensive bodies, and that's something that you don't necessarily see in other brands. So, while people may be waiting a little while to see a certain function in firmware, just be thankful that, no matter what camera you pick up from Nikon, you're going to get a lot of the functionality that's in the higher end cameras as well. So, I've always been appreciative of that.
Here's a great comment from Mr. Seth Miranda. He said, Nikon USA told me it's about 150 people on average involved in the creation of every firmware update. So that just gives you a sense of how massive it is. And I also know behind the scenes there's a huge number of people that test the cameras as well. So, and as you were saying, Jeff, the critical part of not bricking cameras is testing. And so we all kind of think, oh, just copy and paste and stick that code from a Z8 to a Z9 and it's going to work. Well, no, it's not always that simple. They might have very different stacks, code stacks. And then you've got to test it, and then it might break, and then you've got to test it again. And you have to test, maybe people don't realize, but you have to test every single function. So every button, every combination of buttons, probably every lens. Like, can you imagine what testers have to go through to actually properly test? And if you think about the permutations, like, do any of us want to guess what, 50 button options plus 50 lens options times whatever, and then you have a million permutations of things that you have to test before you've actually ensured that nothing breaks. I would like both of you guys to respond to that, because you're both way more programmers than I am, and engineers.
Well,
Adding a change
well,
or adding a feature
go ahead,
isn't
Jeff.
just adding a feature. It's making sure that feature doesn't all of a sudden cause something that was established and working to fail. So like you said, it's not just, oh, we know this feature is coded right. We have it in this camera, let's put it in that one. But, everything wasn't necessarily coded by the same team due to the release dates of the cameras or the same people. And there's more than one way to do things as well. So you got to make sure that whatever you just did, you got to check everything else in the camera to make sure it didn't get messed up because of what you just did. And that takes an awful lot of time. People have to, I worked in a company, we put firmware in our stuff. It was complicated. It took a long time.
Yep.
I mean, I have some experience with that as a developer. So, especially for the internet, and especially in its earlier years, you have different operating systems, you have different browsers, different standards, and back in the '90s, and there were no real standards. So, I've spent a lot of time just testing on different platforms, testing on different browsers, and those sorts of things. And that is. That's a task in itself. That's a role. Somebody that goes through and can do QA. So that can take as long, if not longer, than the actual development time. So it
That's
is a long
exactly
process, unfortunately.
That's exactly the problem from my perspective. And if you find a bug, then essentially you have to fix that bug and then go through that entire testing process again, because any change might affect something else. So it's a really big deal, and not to throw shade, but it's why we see firmware updates even as recently as a week ago coming out from other brands that were bricking cameras. And it's for exactly this reason that the effort's not put into it. So it's an absolutely massive deal. Now the chat's going off, which I'm loving. We can go in two directions, gentlemen. We can either go into the Z9II / Olympics conversation, or we can ask a question that has hit the chat, which is Z7III and, what, if, when, how, maybe. Which would you like? Which direction would you like to go in first? I will let you two decide.
I think people are probably more interested in the Z9II.
Awesome. All right.
Agree.
Jeff, would you like to kick off your thoughts and theories and speculations around Z9II and the Winter Olympics, etc.? Like, we've got a whole list of thoughts and questions around that.
I'm sure many people feel that if they were going to do it, we would know about it by now. But I think one thing that we should all learn from Nikon is they're very good at surprising us and doing things when we least expect it. We don't have, any idea, what lenses are going to come out when anymore. So we get surprised pleasantly surprised with lens releases and things that come on. And of course, there isn't like any schedule for certain bodies to be released either. So they will tend to surprise us, and I would not rule out the fact that they could very well have some very heavily taped up cameras at the Winter Olympics, and it doesn't mean okay, a month after the Olympics are over, they're shipping cameras. It could be that that's when afterwards that's when they would maybe do a development announcement, and maybe you don't actually see a camera for the next quarter or 6 months or something like that. But it would not shock me if they had something there that certain people were going to have access to fool with.
Tim?
Um, well, let's see. Where do we want to go?
You take it where you want, baby.
Well, I
Run
mean,
with it.
there's plenty of people that have their complaints about the Z9 and some of the functionality that it doesn't have, that the Z8 does have. I don't know if we want to kick off that conversation now, um, but I mean, well, let's go through some of those things. Let's see, the
Sure.
Z9 right now, it doesn't have the HEIF. It doesn't have. Actually, I thought we had some notes on this. Uh, Manual
Yep,
focus
yep.
subject detection, pixel shift, flexible picture shift controls, and some of the updated wide area of focus patterns from some of the lower end models. Those things don't exist. Whether that's going to make it into firmware for the Z9, I think that's anyone's guess. I think what you probably have a better idea of how many days it's been since the last firmware update. I think it's over 100, right?
I had a list and it was 150 a couple of months ago, so we might be getting on towards 200 days since, was it the 5.2 or a 5.1? It came out in like March or April or something like that, which still from my perspective is
So,
actually not that long ago, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that depends. I guess that depends who you are, because the internet seems to think it's been forever. The internet seems
Yeah,
to think
well,
it's been 2 years.
an interesting thing to me is I just on my recent video about the new color recipes, someone yet again was saying, "Oh, the Z9's been abandoned," and I'm like, "What do you mean? I think it's the most firmware updated camera I've ever seen, and those updates have been huge." And they've done a good job of trying to keep it up with cameras that are now brand new. Like if you think about it, the hardware in that camera is probably 6 or 7 years old since they actually had to start developing it. They gave us a development announcement at the start of 2021, which we're just about at the start of 2026. So that's 5 years ago that everything was locked down. Like it's locked down at that point, and they're just doing testing and firmware and whatever after that. So I think it's pretty good that they've kept up. But yes, it is
I,
missing some of those things that you're talking about, and that's absolutely valid. And I mean, for me, I love to talk about, well, it, yes, it can, let's say it can do some of these things that we're talking about. Why is it that it hasn't arrived yet? And that's the thing that I really want to talk about. And gentlemen, do you have any theories? Let's say those things are coming. Why wouldn't they be here yet? Which we sort of touched
I also
on, but
just Yeah, I also want to add, I mean, your perspective is going to be skewed by also when you purchase the camera. So for those
yep.
of us that purchased the camera and got it right on launch or close to launch, I mean, we've seen firmware deliver, more functionality than the camera initially shipped with. So, if you've had the camera for 4 years, I think your perspective is going to be a lot different than if you bought the camera within the past year.
I mean, if you owned a camera, let's say even 10 years ago or something, I mean, what you got with the Z9, if you got it when it first came out, which I know the three of us have or did, um, it's like you got two more cameras for free since then. I mean, literally, you would have had in the old days, you would have had several more iterations, different model numbers that came out with just the firmware updates that they've done, and that's really incredible. And it cost us nothing. We really and Matt, you've said it on your show. We're spoiled. We're very spoiled. I've said it on my live stream. We're very spoiled, and just to put people kind of like reset the clock a little bit. I don't know if they'll be able to see this or not. When you're feeling like you're being abandoned and your camera isn't good enough, pick up one of these. Pick up a 1971 Minolta SRT 100 with no self timer, with no information in the viewfinder, with no IBIS, with not being able to see information in the viewfinder and having to look at the top of the camera to see what your settings are. To pick up one of those old film cameras, and all of a sudden, guess what? You're going to be like crying for that digital SLR that you have now, or you know, and you're going to be saying, "Oh, I got the best of the best. I'm really happy now. I'm not going to look at that Minolta anymore."
Yeah, well, someone said in a comment also, back in the good old days, it used to be way better, and then they put down the F6 and the D6, and I'm thinking to myself, an F6 might be lucky to get a firmware update to, I'm not sure what, like it had hardly any electronics in it, and then the D6 has been very, very quiet. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that people get a little bit excited. I do think the hardware is capable of more, but to circle back to, why, like I love to talk about, well, okay, let's assume something else is coming, and it may or may not be, but let's assume it is. Why is it delayed? And from my perspective, it's not delayed. It's in a queue where Nikon are feverishly working on firmware for all the new product that's come out since. And how many cameras have come out since? I think it's 6 that have come out: Z8, Z6III, ZR, ZF, Z52, and Z9II. Yes, it's 6. So they've got to do all that. And then, as those cameras are rolling on, they keep making updated firmware updates for them. And at the same time, they have kept making firmware updates for the Z9. And I would have thought they prioritize firmware. Firstly, new cameras is number one. Like, hey, we've got the hardware. We need to get the camera out. This is the product cycle. Then firmware updates after that will be a little bit based on how desperately is like a feature required, plus I forgot the other thing sales. I was going to say. Sales, plus sales. Like, yeah. What's selling the most? Because what's selling the most is going to be a big driver. And tell me, gentlemen, in your communities, how many people are buying a Z9 today versus who bought it, let's say, 2021 to 2023? Like, I would have thought the majority of Z9 sales have happened.
Yeah, 100% agree with you, and I think that's what people don't understand is you're going to want to make sure that when you've got that hot item out there now that's new, that people are buying, you want to make sure that that is as successful as it can be, because your bank account is not benefiting anywhere near as much from Z9 sales anymore. And it may tick people off, but that's business 101. That's business reality. You're going to put your eggs where you need to grow your business and maintain your profitability. And something like the Z9 is going to be, okay, we're really good everywhere else right now. We don't have any issues. We threw in some new stuff on those other models, and our guys are freed up, and let's let them now, put some of that stuff in the Z9 that we're all, wanting to have in the Z9. And I know people aren't going to like me having said that, but I mean, that's the reality of business. I'm sorry. I worked in electronics manufacturing for 40 years, so I think I know a little bit about that.
Yeah, you sure do. We've got a theory from Mookie. Thank you, Mookie. Mookie's theory is, my theory is that some of the chips inside the Z9 are a bit behind the others despite having the XP7 processor. It can't handle some Wi-Fi things required for imaging cloud, for instance. And look, that's definitely a theory that's out there, is that there just simply isn't the hardware in that camera that, as we discussed, was probably locked off from a hardware perspective 5 years ago. Long time ago now, and so maybe imaging cloud related stuff is a no, maybe, but there are plenty of other things like, I don't know, pixel shift. But then even pixel shift, maybe the IBIS unit in that, you require different hardware to do pixel shift. I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things in any way, shape, or form, but we can't assume that the IBIS unit that's in a Z8 and a Z9 is the same unit that's in a Z6 III and a ZR and so on. We just can't assume that. Although the Z8 does have pixel shift, doesn't it? That came a while ago, but they still might not have the same IBIS unit. So there's a lot of things that play here when it comes to what's possible. And I also think, like Apple Silicon, they give us the different chips, the Pro and the the Extreme and whatever else, and they're actually different yields of the same chip. It's how many cores that come out of the yield, and it would be my belief that there's actually they're called XPEED 7, right? But there's probably different versions of XPEED 7. You probably don't need the same in a Z52 that you have in, say, a Z8, or a Z9 that's working very, very hard. Or even, I've even got a theory that the ZR has got like the best XPEED 7 versions because it runs so cool relatively to, the fact that it can run in that confined space, and it seems to have better thermals. So there's so many things we just don't know, which is what I love. Which is what I love about us all talking about it, so we can speculate on it. But yeah, there's a lot there. Another QQQ from Tim Hunter. The Z-Red ecosystem expansion, does that go in addition to the traditional lineup, or drop in to drag out the lifespan of drop lineups? Can someone interpret that question for me? I think I understand it, and I think the answer is that I believe that both lines will keep running at the speed that they normally do. That's what I think. I think Nikon will attempt not to slow down stills first cameras for their Z cinema line. I mean, there's going to be a bit of a resource hit as they kind of get the rubber on the road. But I was just thinking, we've now got Z52, Z5II, Z6 III, ZF, ZR, Z8, Z9 are all in XPEED 7 mode. They're all in great shape, fantastic AF and everything else, right? And, what else do we need to become XPEED 7? And I think the only two things left are the ZFC and the Z30. And, will we even see those? Will they even bother to update those very entry-level cameras? I don't know. I have no crystal ball on that. So it leaves space open now for maybe some more new things, which might mean more Z Cinema and, perhaps any other cameras, which I think we had on our list to talk about APS-C. So can you tell me what you were thinking there in regards to APS-C, Jeff, and cameras?
Well, I mean, I was looking at the price points of where the APS-C cameras as they exist today, where the price points were, and where the low end price point was on a full frame Z camera. And there's an $800 gap between the highest priced APS-C camera and the lowest priced full frame camera. So you look at that and you say, well, you do have room in there to fit in another APS-C camera. You got an $800 window. And so how do you want to interpret that? Do you want to look at that and say, well, for those who may feel still that, we don't have a D500 replacement, quote unquote. I mean, there are those that feel that way. Maybe you have a more professional, weather sealed, robust body that you could come out with APS-C, and you can throw another $600 onto the price tag or something and argue that that is a super pro level APS-C camera, and that's why it's priced where it is, and it's still lower than the entry level, quote unquote, full frame. That's how I kind of, my mind worked. Whether my mind's working good or not, who knows? It depends what day it is. But
no, I think your mind is working brilliantly there, Jeff. And there's definitely space. And I remember making a video probably 2.5 years ago when the Fuji XH2S came out, and it has a stacked APS-C sensor. So that sensor existed, and at that time I said, that is the most likely option for a D500 replacement. And I even bought the camera at the time and experimented with it and so on. Now that's been in the market a while. That sensor is definitely going to be cheaper than it was 2.5 years ago now. So definitely 100% the technology's there. I definitely think the desire is there. And I think we've concluded that there's the price point is there that you've just outlined. And maybe there's the space now in their production roadmap, in the sense of, we've got all these fabulous cameras. Like if you want a fantastic entry-level full frame, the Z9II is unbelievable. And if you want the lightest, smallest thing, the Z50II is unbelievable, and so on. Everybody knows this hymn book. So I don't know. It sounds like there's space. There's the tech. They've certainly got the processor. I don't know. I think next year is going to be really interesting. I suppose ultimately what I'm saying is next year's got space. And a lot of people, we've got the question on the screen here, which segues into this. So there's space. Z9II, might it be next year? We never really finished the discussion around the Olympics. So when is the Olympics? July? When is the Winter Olympics?
February.
Winter Olympics.
February.
And February, I think.
Sorry. Your winter, not my winter. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm upside down here on the other side of the universe. Okay, so that's soon. So I think we all agree that these cameras turn up in the wild doing these sort of things undercover, maybe 6 to 12 months before they're released. So yeah, I mean, maybe we'll get some Nikon rumors stuff happening there. Who knows? A great question here, though, from Dine Eugenio, which is from a business perspective, should we wait for Z9II or get the Z9? I think this is a really great question because I think the Z9II, there's a good chance it'll be a bit more expensive. I have a feeling, we're waiting because it's going to be feature-packed. What do you think, gents?
I think you're right on the price. Yeah, I think you're right on the price on the Z9II. I mean, in this country, we're going to have tariffs. So, I mean, it's going to be more expensive just based on that alone. But I think they introduced it at a price where they could capture more of the market than they currently had. So I would be surprised if it came out at the same price that the Z9 debuted at. I think they're going to have to charge a lot more for it. But I also want to get back to the APS-C cameras because Nikon is really good at sort of mixing things up. And for the longest time, they were telling us that they're going to focus on the high end and the mid-level prosumer market. Then all of a sudden, they came out with the ZFC, they came out with the Z30, and that kind of contradicts the strategy that they've been putting out there all along. And up until those two recent APS-C lenses, there wasn't much in APS-C from Nikon. So it's kind of an unknown where they're going to go with that. I know there's so many people that want that Z500 or that D500 replacement, but at the same time, at that price point, I just don't know that it makes sense for them. But it's interesting because they dropped those lenses, and now I don't know what they're thinking in terms of another body for APS-C. And then my other thought on that is with the ZFC. I mean, Nikon has a history of releasing these retro cameras, and they're kind of one and done. So it's going to be interesting to see if they actually have version 2 of the ZFC, a version 2 of the ZF.
That gets me to thinking that the camera I'd like to see is the SP, like the rangefinder, with a detachable lens. If they made that, I tell you, it would give Fuji a good run for their money. And I might have to buy it in every color. Did anyone see the render that was on Nikon Rumors recently?
A good run for their money.
I did. I saw that.
Yeah,
Right.
And how beautiful did that look? I mean, I'm there, and I think a lot of us would just be there. We wouldn't even have to think. It's a little bit about the ZR, which I wanted to talk about at the end because I know I know some people are getting the ZR just because they're excited, and I think why not? I mean, I think a lot of Fuji's business is around people just kind of get excited, so they buy. They don't need an 8th camera, but they're excited, you know. But anyway, we'll keep talking about the APS-C. So yeah, look, I think there's an audience. Clearly Canon, right? They've got their R7 and their R10. It's a market that they are able to sell into. Obviously, we wouldn't call it entry level, the sort of camera that we're thinking about here. If it does have, if it had a stacked sensor, which would be completely different to what Canon is doing, they just seem to be overclocking. I don't even know how they do their technology. You know, they get 40 frames a second, but their sensors are not fast. They're not BSI. Like, what was it that was in the C50? It's still an FSI non-stacked, non-semi-stacked sensor, or is it semi-stacked? I've lost track, but I'm amazed how they seem to overclock their sensors. So this would be, you know, if ultimately what we're talking about here is a mini Z8 or a Z9. It could basically be that. I mean, imagine in a Z6 III body that an APS-C sensor. Now here is a sticking point for everybody. Do you want to see 21, 26, or 32 megapixels? What does everyone want to see in a D500 replacement? Oh, cat amongst pigeons. Keeping in mind, just before you go, that the Fuji is 26, I think, from memory.
32-ish.
Oh, hello, it's gone large.
Yeah, and you know, I personally would be very disappointed. Now, when I got into digital, I mean, I had the D100, the D200, the D300. Okay. I hate to see them just kind of like throw that market, you know, give up on that market, and then basically just hand everything over to the Fuji and Canon on that side, you know. And I mean, I think you know they got great technology. They've got great ergonomics design on their cameras, and the layouts and where the buttons are all really, really good, in my opinion. I mean, that's why I buy what I buy. I just hate to see them throw their arms up and just say, you know, we're not gonna do any more with that. So I'm hoping that they do at least one more body and put out a few more lenses, and you know, just don't just give up on it. You know, a lot of people out there are counting on you to come through with a nice surprise for them.
Nice. Moz, do you have any APS-C further comments?
As far as sensor size, I think it would have to be around that 33 megapixel sweet spot. They can't release that camera with the current 20 megapixel sensor. It's just there needs to be something more in it to justify the price that they're going to have to sell it at.
Do you think, what about if it's a 26 stacked, like not partially stacked, but stacked? Like it's basically the XH2S sensor. Because Nikon seem to go lower but faster and cleaner than high. You know, we seem to see that. So if we look at how they trend, I would not be surprised if it's more in that category than a 33 or a 32. Would you cope?
It depends on how well they design it, because they don't want to they don't want to have a camera that's no longer low noise. You know, they got to worry about that. Now, if they can overcome increasing the noise and still give you a 33, then that's that would be, well, I don't want to use that term. You know what I'm thinking of. I don't want to say it, but that would be a great thing if they could do that. Now, if they can't, then I would throttle back the megapixels and do the fully stacked. But if they could come up with a way to increase the megapixels and keep it so that it doesn't increase the noise and keeps it so it's nice and clean, then that would be like hitting it out of the park.
Well, that's your cake and eat it, isn't it, Jeff? And we all want our cake and eat it. What's interesting to me is we do hear Canon users talking about the R10 and the R7 rolling shutter. You know, because this is wildlife action. Yeah. This is what these cameras are aimed at. There's no question, because you get a Z52 if you're doing anything else, right? So if you're going to offer those 30 or 40 frames per second, I think it's critical that you deal with rolling shutter. And I think I would have thought that dealing with rolling shutter is more important than giving you from 26 to 30 megapixels, which is really not in real terms much of a it's when we go from 24 to 33, it's only a 13% extra pixels on the long edge. So it's really not a lot, and 26 obviously to 32 is even less. It's probably 10% or something. So, and what I've observed that Nikon do is they attempt to give you a product that delivers an image as we would always expect it to be. In other words, they try to get rid of things like rolling shutter, which is a kind of an artificial side effect of technology. And they try. They can't do it with, they don't do it with their lower end products because of course they can't. But if you think of what they did with the ZR and the Z6 III and obviously the Z8 and the Z9, these are products that, I was shooting a helicopter flying overhead with the ZR, and it's such a cheap camera. And I tell you, that semi-stack sensor, there was no bending in those helicopter blades. And so what I think they try and do, and I think it's a philosophy, is let's keep the image as true to our heritage, which is a piece of film exposing something, rather than push the envelope and give you a result where there's asterisks here and there, and the asterisk might be you've got rolling shutter or you've got too much noise, so we have to do a lot of noise reduction and so on. I just think that's their philosophy, and I think it's borne out by all of the products that we see, especially in the XP7 era, which is really where they've hit their stride. I think we would agree the XP6 cameras were the crossover between DSLR and full mirrorless, and now we're really seeing how they want to play the game. And now I think we've got an interesting question here from Alex150, which is Z7 even in the cards, and are they removing it? In my opinion, if they are going to keep it, will it be after Z9II, Z8II? If they don't keep up with it, I'm hoping for a high-end ZF as a photo focus camera. Yeah. Do we want to just have a little chat about Z7?
Well, is there room in when you look at the costs and where everything else sits right now to improve that camera and still have it fit in a slot? Is there a slot left for it? I don't know. I don't know that there is.
Well, yeah, for me, it's simply they'd have to give us more megapixels, and I think the 60 is pretty tried and tested. I've actually shot with the A7R5 a lot, and it's as long as you're doing non-action based things where rolling shutter is an issue. Obviously, it has a shutter for up to 10 frames per second, but for video, it's got extreme rolling shutter, and then once you go to electronic, extreme rolling shutter. But it's a fantastic sensor. It gives you a great result. There is rumors from people that I know and people who are looking at what's come out with the A7 V, that they're kind of hoping that we'll get an A7R6, which has a semi-stacked sensor. And there's also another rumor, so hey, which one's true, that the A7R6 will have even more megapixels. So for me, 45 to 60 is not really enough of a jump. Again, it's only like 1,000 or 1,400 extra pixels. So if there's a Z7 III with 70 or 80 megapixels, and then I start to think to myself, how many pixels do we want? So it is a struggle to see where the Z7 III fits in. Totally agree. And I've still got my original on-launch Z7, and it is a fantastic camera with a fantastic sensor, and it is still beautiful. And as we all know, it's about half a hair's less dynamic range than the King of Kings, the D850. So it's so great. So if you've got a Z7 or a Z7 II and you shoot everything except for really fast action, you've still actually got a magnificent camera.
Yeah.
Gents, Z7 III?
Yeah, and you can get great deals on the D850 right now too.
There you go. There you go. If you love the good old slap.
I didn't get rid of mine. I still got it back there.
Me too. Me too. I sold one of my two.
That's what I did. I sold one of my two to get a Z9.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think the Z7 III. I just don't. I wonder what price point it's going to sell at, and why would somebody would buy that camera over the Z8? I mean, it's got a lot of competition from its own company. So the Z7 III, it's going to have something that's desirable. Whether that's more megapixels or it, I don't know what else it would be aside from more megapixels. I don't know how they can fit it into the lineup, unfortunately, once they release the Z8.
Now to jump back to our notes, and the chat's going wild. I don't know if you guys want to look and see anything you want to call out, let me know. But in the meantime, because I'm struggling to keep up with it all, and thank you. It's fantastic to have everybody here. We peaked at 100 people just a minute ago. A few people left because obviously I'm too boring, and I get that. I am boring for some people, or maybe it's my hair that's offending people. One of the questions we had in our notes, in our show notes, was, are they going to hold off releasing pre-capture RAW and 30 FPS RAW on the Z9 until the new version? Talk to me, Jeff. What are you thinking? What's going on for you there?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm not speaking just for myself. I mean, obviously, only because of where I live right now, I've migrated to bird photography, and for me, I mean, I've shot pretty much everything. I've even done a few weddings, but I don't want to admit that. Uh, but anyway, you tend to shoot where you live. If you live in a city, you're going to do architecture probably, or street photography, because that's what's predominant where you live, unless you can afford to travel everywhere. If you live in Florida, there's a good chance that you're doing a lot of wildlife and bird photography. So I think you tend to shoot based on a lot of cases where you live and what is available to you where you live. Because I
Definitely.
always did I did landscapes when I lived in New England. I did landscapes and seascapes and old farms and stuff like that. And now I'm doing mostly birds. But um, it's and I'm losing track of where we were going with this.
Will we get pre-capture and 30
Yeah.
frames per
So
second?
for wildlife people, a lot of people are definitely not happy that you don't have pre-capture raw rather than pre-capture with JPEGs. They want pre-capture raw, and then even with 30 frames a second. I'll be honest with you, I got 20 frames per second on the Z9, and there's only certain situations, even with birds, that I'm shooting 20 frames per second. Lots of times I'm shooting, 14, 15, something like that. Um, and but some people are very upset about that, and obviously the way other parties did 30 frames per second with their camera, Nikon could have done the same thing. Had it where it was 30. If it was lossy compressed and it was 30, and then if it's raw, it's 20. They could have done the same thing to kind of silence the critics, or what have you, if they wanted to. And pre-capture raw, I really do not think that they don't have a powerful enough processor to be able to handle it on the Z9. And I think that in terms of a wildlife photographer, those are the two things that I think really kind of get in somebody's throat a little bit. And I hope that if they can do it, I mean, you know what? If you can't do it because of hardware limitations or whatever, just be honest and say, the hardware's too old and can't support it, and we're not going to bring your Z9 in and modify it so you get those two features. I mean that's the way it is. But just be upfront about it, because you don't want to think that it's just kind of being held off to put it in a Z9II to get people to buy a Z9II. There's a lot of other things I'd like to see or would need to see in a Z9II for me to even consider buying it, but we haven't gotten there yet, so I'll hold off.
Yeah, well, I
I
wanted to
think the
say in
one thing
regard.
that's
You go, Tim. You go.
I was just say, I think the one thing that sticks out in my head about the Z9 and whether or not they can do 30 frames per second pre-capture raw is that dual pipeline technology. And is that holding it back because that processor is working twice as hard because of that dual pipeline technology? I don't know, but that's just one thing I wonder. I wish I knew more about the architecture.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the same thing. I believe I've heard somewhere along the trails that the pre-capture is actually based on the JPEG that's fed to the EVF. So it's based on that dual architecture, and I'm guessing it's designed to be JPEG, and thus I've talked about this before, but in other words, for them to change it to RAW would mean a rewriting of the code base, probably from a really low level. And they just simply, and let's keep in mind that raw pre-capture in the A12 is now it's a year old. The A12 only came out a year ago. So it wasn't even on the cards for flagship 45 to 50 megapixel cameras, because let's face it, the R3 and the R1 don't count because they're not, they're 24 megapixels. So Nikon's only had to think about it for 1 year. And if you think about the 1 year from a commercial perspective, are they going to rewrite the code of the Z9 from the ground up for, as we've already discussed, a smaller number of customers than the initial purchases, which I think we all know the Z9 was a great success because it was the first X-Speed 7, etc., etc. And the numbers are just not going to be there from a commercial perspective. So I genuinely think it's not a hardware limitation. I just think it's a really tough thing. And if you think about it, if we think the Z9II is coming out in the next 12 to 18 months, that team, the Z9 team, is working crazy hard on the Z9II to make it the very, very best camera that we can possibly see. So I think there's a little bit of a collision of a few different things. And to address why do they not publicly admit it, well, I don't think any company wants to say, oh, our gear's not good enough. And they also don't want to say it to their customers, because I'm sure they still sell some Z9s. And I don't think they're misleading anybody, because I'm a very, very strong advocate of, we bought the camera that we bought, and that's what we bought. And nobody made any promises. Nobody ever makes any promises, and that's the way we've always lived in this world. So I don't know, if I'm going to put on my big boy shorts, I go, the three of us bought our Z9s in 2021, early 2022. There was no such thing as no such thing as pre-capture RAW at that time. Didn't exist. Maybe Canon had it in a low-end camera. I don't know, but I don't think so. And so here we are. And I'm not trying to be hard. And some people will call me an apologist. I'm not. This is just logical. This camera, we've had fabulous, like if you think about it, we had all of 2022, all of 2023, all of 2024 before pre-capture RAW existed in their only competition, which is the A12. So we had 3 whole years. In most circles, that's almost the entire lifespan of that camera. That's the entire life cycle. So I don't know. I think it's a collection of column A, B, C, and D. It might be possible, but it's just really, really hard.
It may not be practical depending on when a version 2 is going to come out.
Sorry,
you don't want to take the resources away from the Z9II to do that on the Z9.
Well, there's that too. Plus, I think they're giving us. I think they're giving us a lot of. They've given us so much stuff. I mean, I'd love to make a list of all of the things that have been added since the three of us bought our camera, right? And
it's pages and pages.
Yes, it's pages and pages. That's exactly right. So, I don't want to make excuses. I just try and be logical, and I just think at the end of the day, the commercial imperative. Like, I think I read somewhere that it was Sony that said a firmware update costs $1 million. Like a reasonable firmware update costs $1 million in time. And now, if you think about it, 150 engineers working for 6 months. Then and that probably isn't 6 months for all of them, but you very quickly see where that $1 million goes, right? So I don't know. Well, you've got to sell a lot of cameras to get that back.
Does that $1 million include everyone sending their cameras that got bricked back?
Well, on Sony's part, I can't comment. Probably not. I don't think they do. They just go, oh, well, you read the T's and C's? They were, we're not responsible for what happens. I'm only being cheeky there, but we've got a question from AMP Paul UK. Unlike when the Z9 first came out, we now have a Z8 for studio landscape. Is it possible that Z9II would be designed for sports action wildlife with a base ISO of 200, not 64? Or even 50. So basically back to a D6, D5 variant. I don't think so, personally. I think it's amazing that it's the consummate all-rounder. It does 8K. You can take it up to the top of Mount Everest. You can throw it down Mount Everest. It'll still be working when you get to the bottom, and it can shoot everything. What I would love to see is that the sensor is just a little bit better than the one that we've got. Let's get those iterative improvements that we've seen in sensors. They move very, very slowly, so I don't expect very much. But, I love the fact that it's 45 megapixels. That's fabulous. And I wouldn't have probably bought it if it was 24, like the R1 and the R3. Gentlemen, how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, I
No, I
agree
agree with that. I
100%.
wouldn't have bought it.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I wouldn't have bought it if it was 24 megapixels. Um, Not at all. I don't
Yeah.
know what I would have bought. I had a Z6 II, I had a Z7.
The
Probably would have
Z8
waited
maybe.
for the Z8, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And talk about, I would not want to pay the kind of money that some people have paid for a 24 megapixel camera. I don't care if the thing can sing to me at night, put me to sleep. I wouldn't pay that kind of money. It's just way too much money. Um,
Yeah.
I think, I'll just kind of skip a little bit into a Z9II a little bit here and just
Let's
say
do
I
it. Let's
think
go there.
it's imperative to me, my opinion, it's imperative that you update the PCIe architecture in the camera so that you can fully support CFEB 4.0, take advantage of all the speed, have an X-Speed 8 processor. And I think because they've been so generous with the firmware updates that they've done on the Z9, and they're probably going to continue that pattern because it's made a lot of people happy overall. I mean, very happy overall. And I think what they want to do is, if I was them, I would actually over design a Z9II and make sure that I had enough extra capacity in that camera so that I could do some pretty serious firmware updates down the road and not have a hardware limitation. So I would put in some really phenomenal hardware to make sure it's killer right out of the gate, but it still has enough room in it where it's not running at, make it so it's only running at 60% of its capabilities at that point and still be a wow factor. And then you've got enough room in there to grow and add with firmware updates down the road and not have any, oops, we can't do that, or, it doesn't happen type of thing. But I think that's almost, you have to have that, in my opinion. And you need to have the,
Sorry, my
you have
camera's
to, you have,
overheated. Again.
Yeah, you
Keep
have you
going.
have to have the features that Tim brought up before, and put in you know put in the HEIF, put in the manual focus subject detect, the flexible picture controls, the pixel shift, all that stuff, and the pre-capture RAW, and hopefully 30 frames per second or better RAW, and do all that stuff. But you have to optimize the architecture in the camera to support the CFE, because no one else has a camera that really supports the CFE B40. So why not be the first one to do it?
Yeah, I definitely, I would be very surprised if that just doesn't happen by default. Sorry, my camera's
Yeah.
overheated, so we'll just give it a little rest.
Yep.
I'm going to change cameras for next week. The Z30 clearly can't handle it. It's going to be 33C here today, which is heading up towards, I don't know, 90 Fahrenheit, and this room is not air conditioned. I definitely think XP 8 will be a cracker. I think Nikon have shown us that they're very, very good at making these processors now. There was a lot of talk around the A7 V being, they've put everything on one chip now, and I'm like, XP 7's already been that, and it's been that for, for 5 years or whatever. Because as we know, both Canon and Sony had separate AI focusing chips on their previous models. and Nikon's never done that. It's everything's going on in the XP7. So I expect big things. 5 years, 5 or 6 years in chip design. We see it every year from Samsung and Apple that processors just get faster and faster. The dies are getting smaller. The power consumption gets less. They get more cores on these things. So, Jeff, I have no problem in thinking it's going to be a way more powerful chip. What might they do? What might they do? What could we think of? And I think the biggest thing that Canon and Sony are doing with this extra power is that they're increasing AF. Like, they're just making it more and more crazy. Any other thoughts? What do we do with more power if the megapixels don't change much?
Well, I'm not really. I like the megapixels where they are, to be honest with you. I always had the mindset. I'm old school. I had the mindset if I want a lot of megapixels, then and I'm using it for I'd go medium. I'd get a medium format camera and use it for what medium format cameras are for, and I'll use my Z9 for doing my car racing and birds or whatever. But I like 45.7. There are disadvantages to when you get up to the higher megapixels with diffraction and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that they just there's so much they could do. I mean, I think now I don't know if it's possible. I'm gonna whine a little bit. I mean, because I don't have bags of cash, as they say, to throw around, but the red raw stuff is great. What they're doing there is great. I mean, I'd like to see them come up with a even better compression setup for the red files, so that you don't have to. Everybody doesn't necessarily have to go out and buy an M4 Mac in order to use it. I know my M1 Mac really could only do 6K. 8K isn't going to work too well. So, I'm already with a computer that's only 3 years old. I'm already restricted already if I really wanted to go full bore and use some of the higher end video codecs and stuff like that. So, it would be nice if they could optimize some of these video files and make them a little bit smaller. And make it so you don't have to have quite as extensive of a rework of your computer system in order to be able to work on these files. But then again, I mean, I myself probably don't have to worry about that because I'm not at the level, nor will I be at the level of doing video that you're at, Matt. So I don't do it professionally. So I just do it to supplement my channel, my content. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that they can do. If you improve the sensor and squeeze a little more dynamic range out of it. But I will make another comment about some things people complain about. I know I'm digressing here, but lots of times people will say, "Oh, my dynamic range on my camera is 14.7 EV, and yours is only 14. Mine's so much better, or whatever, or yours 14.2, I'm 14.7." Really, numbers that close really don't mean anything. If you're within 0.5 EV, you can't even really see it unless it's at least 0.5 EV. And so people get hung up on that, and where there's really no major difference, or looking at the DxO scores on their processor, on their chips, and saying, "Oh, this one's got a DxO score of 100, and this one's got a DxO score of 97." It's nothing you're going to see, and well within the tolerances of their random sampling that they do, because who knows how many chips they actually check. So we get hung up on specs, and I wish people would stop worrying so much about specs and just worry more about, look at what you do and look at improving your own photography. Look at improving yourself, improving your technique, and improving your output, making it so, wow, my pictures this year are so much better than what I took 3 years ago, because I've really learned a lot, and I'm using things that I didn't use before, or what have you. I really try to push learning your camera. And yeah, I hate to say it, sometimes you got to read the manual and really get to know it and use it. And you never use all the capabilities of your camera anyway. Very few people do, but if you're in a certain genre, learn all the stuff that would help you with that genre of photography and be the best you can be, and don't let the gear limit you because you don't understand your gear. And concentrate on producing good stuff, and don't worry about all this nitpicky stuff. That's me going off on a
That's all right.
tangent.
We've got a great point that follows on from what you're saying there, Jeff, from Giorsetti. But what images would be possible on a Z9II that currently couldn't be made on a Z9? Z9 is fine by me for a couple of years. I'm in no rush for a Z9II. And yeah, sure, that comes down to use case. And I agree to that to a large extent, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, are we hitting, what do you feel about, are we nearing the cap where how much more can we really do with these cameras? I mean, are we really getting to the point where we're almost there? I mean, maybe we're one step away, and then what are the differences going to be really going to be? Because I mean, I tell people, Tim and I both know, people that use Sony and Canon and Panasonic and all sorts of different cameras, and nowadays, I'll tell you, you buy any of the high end stuff. I mean, if you can't get a good picture with it, then it isn't the camera's problem.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, look, I think from a physics perspective and photo sites and capturing the atoms that come in, we're probably getting close to that. And if it's 60 or 80 megapixels where it finishes, so be it. I ask a few other questions. I come at it from a different perspective, which is how much data do we want to throw around? And then the final one, which I actually think is the most important one, as humans, we live in a physical world where the way we consume media is either on a screen or we print it. And if we print it, how often is it printed 6 feet, 9 feet, 12 feet? So for the majority of us, which any mass market product is made for the majority, not the minority. So we're not talking about fringe use cases where you buy a GFX or a Hasselblad. Does the physical world require us to have more than 50 megapixels or 45? Because they're essentially the same. There's almost no difference between them. And I think there's something in that. Now, you'll always get people saying, oh, but I want to crop. Okay, fine. But you do come up against issues when you say, all right, I want an 80 megapixel sensor that I can crop to 30, but you've now got diffraction, you've now got speed, you've now got storage, you've got all these issues, and we're not talking mass market again. So when we talk about a Z9, which is a master, it's a kind of consummate all-rounder for the mass market. I don't see the megapixels going anywhere. So, or they might creep up a little bit, but I really think 50, like an A1. That's sort of maybe where it ends. But 8K works better in 45 than it does in 50, by the way. So they might stay there just simply for that reason. And then so it's going to be things like dynamic range, which I think is a tough one. I think by increasing speed, that offsets dynamic range and noise. So they're continuing to work on that, and it's possible that the new A7V sensor has got some magic going there. But what they can do with more speed is maybe give us a dual exposure. So you potentially get a dual exposure or some sort of dual circuitry that allows you to capture essentially 2 images and combine them on the fly. And it's happening so fast that we don't even know about it. And that's basically what Red does. Red, with their high-end cameras, they give us beyond 15 or 17 stops by doing this frame doubling, and that's where they get their extreme dynamic range. It's actually 2 frames, and that's why they're so hot, and that's why they're so expensive. Well, guess who owns Red? And guess what? They're about to put out a processor that I think is going to be bananas in the next year or two, and so we might actually see some things happening there in that space. So that would be amazing. More dynamic. Like, I can't remember. Tim, can you just quickly jump on Red's homepage and look up what the extended dynamic range is of the Red? I can't remember whether it's 17 plus or 20 plus, but it's a lot. Like, it's like, wow, this is significantly more than what we're used to. So that would be pretty amazing. Heat, battery life will continue to be improved. Focus will continue to be improved, but to what end? Because it's already really good, but I just think it'll get better and better to the point where it's perfect. Now, I don't think it's perfect for anybody yet. The ability to see in more in the dark will happen. The ability to have better stabilization handheld, which might be done with processing on the camera, in the camera. Let's say you've got an 8K sensor and you shoot a 6K video, that it's actually in real time. It's moving the video around on the sensor. Some cameras already do that sort of thing, I think. Well, that's how we get digital stabilization, is doing exactly that. So there's lots of things, but if we talk about traditional photography as you and I know it, going out with a Pentax K1000, not much is going to change with putting a camera on a tripod and taking a shot, and we've got to collect photons on some sort of substrate. But it's kind of all of these ancillary things. So yeah, I can see more coming. And I think the other place is with connectivity, having much better connectivity to Instagram, Facebook, and so on. We're already seeing big strides with, things like Imaging Cloud, and all the other companies have got similar things where, your images are just going back to your computer. Well, I think the next generation of that's going to be even better, and I'm going to let someone else speak. But I do think there's a lot of headroom there for things. And plus, we don't really know how the world is going to continue to change, and AI. Sorry, Tim, off you go.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say computational photography is a big area that they need to expand into, especially if you've got somebody that's, used to their iPhone, that's going to get a near perfect picture every time they pick up a camera, and all of a sudden their shots don't look like, their phone photos. So there's a
Yep.
lot they can do with that, to get some of that market back. But that being said, there's a huge resurgence in point and shoots right now. Canon has a point and shoot that I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in this country, it's selling retail for twice the price right now that it was just a month ago because of the holidays. So there's a big market for point and
Wow.
shoot cameras, and I'm not. I would be surprised. I don't know if Nikon's going to go back in that market or not, but I guess it depends how long it lasts. But for Canon to sell basically a re-release of an older camera from 10 years ago, I think about a month ago it was selling for 360. Now it's close to $600 in the stores here. So there's a
Wow.
huge resurgence in point and shoots, and I have two daughters, and my daughters, my dad gifted them really nice point and shoots probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I have no idea what happened to them. They sold them, they lost them, they traded them. I don't know, but we're talking about nice cameras like the GX7 and just nice cameras. And now that's what they want again. They want those cameras back. So it's going to be expensive Christmas for me because these cameras are all selling for 2-3 times what they normally would. Even the older models, you go on eBay, you look at an older Sony cam from 2012. The prices that these guys are getting for this stuff is just it's crazy. So I don't know if Nikon will go back into that point and shoot market, aside from what they already have, which is very, very niche. Um, but I don't know. Getting back to it, I think computational photography is definitely an area that we're going to see Nikon and these other brands just sort of do a lot more with going forward.
Jeff, did you want to talk more about the Z9II?
Sure. Where you want to go with it?
Look, I don't really mind. Really, what do you think will be in it? I speculated on all of the things, some of the things that are possible, but
yeah,
what do they need to put in it to make people buy it? Especially people who already have a Z9. I suppose that's the lowest bar to entry.
Getting harder. It's getting harder and harder because of how good the cameras are already. But you got to update the architecture. You got to support. I mean, why make CFE B40 if no one can take advantage of the capability. So I mean that's a no-brainer. They have to do that, and that's a big job, changing your architecture and your camera for the added buses or whatever that you need for the data stream and everything. So that's no small task, but no one else has done it, and I think they need to do it because that'll help them leapfrog and be on everybody will be catching up to them again. Um, they could improve the EVF even more. I mean, Sony does have
Definitely.
the higher, the better EVF, um, or
Yeah, the
claim to be anyway.
Z6III
I mean,
EVF is a beautiful EVF.
yeah,
Anywhere, if that's your baseline, do that or better. You've got a great EVF.
yeah, yeah. Improve the EVF, improve the frames per second a little bit, improve the dynamic range a little bit if you can. Um, Make sure you don't do anything that's going to make it noisier. You want it to be able to have as low noise as you can have at higher ISOs. Because I'll tell you, when I'm out there, and granted, I'm not shooting with I'm shooting with an 800 PF 6.3 or a 600 6.3 PF lens or what have you. And yeah, I mean, okay, the sun's coming up. Well, I'm not even trying to shoot anything flying because I'm going to be at ISO 25,000 because I need a higher shutter speed to freeze the bird. Not even worth it, even with noise reduction software. That's too high. So it would be nice to really concentrate, if you can, a little bit on making high ISO, lowering the noise at high ISOs even better than it is today.
Hmm.
Um, and stick with the I'm old fashioned, man. I like having two cards in my camera that are the same.
Yep.
Uh,
Let's
don't
keep
do a
CF
don't
Express Type B going.
don't yeah. Keep with this Type B. Don't do a B and a SD card, please. Don't
It
ever
won't
do
happen.
that. Uh,
They won't do that.
Not on a Z9II. Um, Battery life is fantastic. I don't really know. Well, they should add a couple USB ports on the camera so that
Yep. Two of those.
you have two USB ports on the camera would be something important to do. Um, Maybe going with the newer style hot shoe,
Oh
like
yeah.
you have on the ZR, and put that
Mm.
on a Z9II would be a smart thing to do.
Yep.
Um, So yeah, you could think of some stuff that would make it where, yeah, you know what, maybe I'll trade in, like for me I'd say, maybe I'll trade in my Z8 and get a Z9 II, and then I have a Z9 and a Z9 II.
Yeah. Well, there's a few other suggestions here which I think are great. Better time code implementation. There is already time code. SDI, 32-bit audio. The same screen that's on the ZR. I would love the 4-inch screen. I tell you what, I'd also love is the flip forward, flip around, flip in every direction screen. What do they call it? The 4-axis rear screen that basically Fuji, Panasonic have it on some, I think, and of course Sony now has it on the A7 V, the A7R5, and the A1. I think the A1 II. I'd love to see that screen implemented across all of Nikon's, Z9II upwards sort of range. Yeah, so that's we've ended up, and I reckon there's still tons more stuff, but that's a lot of advancements that would all be fabulous. And someone else was saying here something about specs. My camera's overheating again, by the way. So if I disappear again, I'm so sorry, but I'll still be here. Wider dynamic range, Type B or Type C. That's interesting they say Type C. I don't think anyone's ever released a Type C card, even so the design is ratified. It's a bigger and even faster card than Type B. In Gen 4, of course. The better EVF. There goes my screen. Sorry, everybody. And what else did they say here? Faster RAW files, 40 frames per second, and they would like 60 meg. I don't. This is a Nikon 66. Thank you for joining us. I've been following Nick Can for years. You've been part of this channel. Amazing. Yeah. So I think we've got a lot of compelling stuff, gentlemen, that we could add to a Z9II, and there would be way more Red, of course, some basic level red stuff in there. Anything else, Tim, you'd like to add to your Christmas list Z9II camera?
Not that we haven't already covered. I think that, Nikon knows this is going to be more of a niche camera going forward. I mean, they happened to release it at a point in time where a lot of people bought the camera because they didn't want to wait any longer for that, that Z8 that they were really looking for, that D850 replacement. So I think going forward, it's really going to be more of a niche camera, and they're going to have to target that niche very well. So it's going to have to differentiate itself from the Z9, probably in ways that we may not even be thinking about right now.
Yep.
I thought
Other
of
people
one
have
more
added.
thing.
They've added Open Gate, pre-capture RAW, of course, 2 USB ports, Wi-Fi 7. Yeah, I mean, there's a long list of things that could be added to make it compelling. Sorry to speak over you, Jeff.
No, that's okay. The only other thing, Tim and I talked about this the other day, and we were actually looking at our cameras, is put some more aspect ratio choices in the camera as well.
Ah, yes.
You got everybody's all excited about, oh, I could spin the wheel on the GFX 100 RF and look at all these aspect ratios I could choose from. And, I mean, I think we only have on the Z9, I think we got 3:2 ratio, DX mode, 1:1, and 16:9. So, what about a 5:4 ratio for 8x10s? They can add some more. I think they can add some. I don't know why that's a big deal to do that. Add some more aspect ratio capability to the camera as well.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's a big deal. I literally think they have this long list on a whiteboard, and it's like things keep being shoved in above the things that are just not quite as important as the other things, and they're just hamsters in a wheel, just desperately trying to get out. And it's like, when are we going to do those new ratios? Oh, but damn it, we've got to give everybody the focus limiter now. They want the focus limiter more, and we want to give them, red technology, and blah blah blah. So, I
Let's
think
not
it's
forget, we're also waiting for that cat meow shutter sound.
Oh my god! Meow, 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 meow. D. Morrison, colorist, how much red influence do you want in a Z9II? Gentlemen, how much do you want? I would like it to be, personally, ZR level plus maybe a couple of different compression, like 3 compression versions, but some 12-bit red. That'd be great. I don't need as many as they have had in the past. Just as long as it could sit on set with some, Komodos and get the same color science, that'd be great.
Yeah, we got to be careful that we don't. Well, obviously, this is fun time. We're asking about like pie in the sky, everything that we'd like to have in the camera, and of course, the one thing that we haven't figured out yet is, okay, if they put everything in we're talking about, is it going to be a $7,000 camera? Yeah, it's. I think Red's an important player in the game, and of course they've got some great sensor technology, obviously, in their cameras as well. And it'll be interesting to see if any of their sensor technology migrates into a future Nikon camera.
Well,
Not really just just LUTs and video type stuff, but actually sensor technology.
Well, it's a really, really good point, Jeff. And let's think about the fact that they released a new version of the Raptor, which is half the price of the Raptor. It's the Raptor XE, which still has the global 8K 17 stops sensor, but they halved the price because they took a couple of things out of it. Now, that camera, if I'm not mistaken, is now $15,000 USD. I wonder, with economies of scale and whatever else, they might be able to bring that down to Z9 territory. If you could get the level of picture quality that you get with a Red Raptor, and it shoots 60 frames per second RAW, and, it's global, right? It's global, and it has dynamic range. So it's basically the holy grail. It's not a Sony sensor. Imagine that in a Z9 something. Maybe it's
Oh,
not the 2, maybe
okay.
it's the 3, but that would make people buy. That would make people
I'm
buy.
starting to sweat. I'm starting to sweat.
I'm
You can't
sweating
see me.
too,
I'm starting to
baby.
sweat.
Oh my God. And Nikon own the tech, so maybe.
Yeah, they have a lot of options these days. They really do.
Yeah, I mean they've got a global sensor in the Komodo, and now sure it's APS-C, but it's a global sensor, and that camera is like 6K USD now, isn't it? Isn't it 5995 or is it 6995? Like, honestly, the amount of sensors that Red would commission to be produced versus what Nikon would increase the economies of scale significantly, and might be able to drive the price point down. So, you know what? I think the party's just getting started, gentlemen, and anything could happen over the next 5 to 10 years. I think there's still a lot more headway. So yeah, no, I think we're excited for a Z9II or whatever the road ahead holds, and
Yeah.
I'm excited. There's so many fantastic comments here. I just don't know which one to jump into. Jasper8210 is saying, I wouldn't mind at all if Nikon gave us pre-capture RAW, but the camera automatically switched into high efficiency format when you engage it. Yeah, well, that could be a simple menu option, and that's a great idea. I do like the Sony implementation that, you can choose crazy high frame rates, but you can have a button that you just toggle. You basically just tap the button and it goes into its maximum frame rate. And you take your finger off the button and you still keep shooting in the lower frame rate. So there's all sorts of cute things you can do. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if anyone noticed that the A7 V does shoot, what is it? Is it 40 frames per second? But it'll only do it at full quality for 1.3 seconds. And so if you use pre-capture at 1 second, then you get 0.3 of a second of shooting. And the thing that I love about what you were saying in regards to CF Express Type 4 is I always theorized that if your card is fast enough, potentially the camera could talk directly to the card, bypass the buffer if they could write that, and then you essentially have an endless buffer for shooting. And we already know the Z9, if you shoot in high efficiency star, is very, very, close to that. Like, it'll give you basically an endless buffer. If they give us Type 4, which is double the bandwidth, we could have an endless buffer with whatever codec you want to shoot in. So, yeah, it's very different to what Sony's supplying. Anyway, because the Z6 III is similar. It just sort of shoots forever, I think. I think I tested that back when it came out. I'm going to turn my camera back on. It's cooled down a little bit. Okay, what else have we got here? Has anyone else seen any... Sorry, Jeff, you go.
That's right. What's your opinion on how has the medium format community felt with the hard drive being in the Hasselblad? Do you ever see a hard drive feature coming into what we use typically? Or do you think it makes sense or no sense?
Look, I think it's really smart. Leica do it as well, that they'll give you, 256 of RAM in your camera. It means if you leave your home without a card, but you've got your camera, you can still shoot. I think it's fantastic. The downside is if this RAM ever fails, but if we look at, say, an iPhone or an old computer, I don't think I've ever had any of my devices, and they're probably the oldest ones that are RAM only, as in a spinning disc is now gone from them, might be a decade old. None of them have failed yet, touch wood. So I think there's very, very high quality RAM manufacturers. So as long as they use that high quality RAM, and because the worst thing you'd want is the RAM in your camera that's soldered to your motherboard to stop functioning. That would be bad. And so I actually quite like Nikon's implementation. When I very first saw the ZF, I'm like, oh my God, that micro SD slot, that is like internal RAM that if you can remove. And so I kind of quite like that. The problem with that is you sometimes do remove it and then suddenly it's not there. So yeah, I'd like to see some amount of internal RAM, even if it's just like 16 gig or I mean, RAM is so cheap, although I was recently reading due to AI, the price of RAM has just gone up. But if you're talking
Yeah, it
about
has.
64 gig or 128 gig of RAM, it's not it would be negligible, the cost. When you think about, I don't know, if you think about these things and you jump online and you can pick up these things for next to nothing, and that's all you really want in there, although it needs to be high quality because you want it to last forever. So that's a very long way of me saying, yes, Jeff, I agree with you. But there are pros and
disagree
cons
on
to
I,
it.
that.
I think about it. I think about it, but I think, like you said, it's got to be extremely reliable, and then I still think they should make it so that it's very, very easy to
Replace.
where you could buy the part, and put it in yourself if it went bad.
Sure.
Make
Well,
it
it's
make it
really interesting, isn't
serviceable
it,
by
that
use.
Apple and I think Nikon are starting to do it. Is the consumer law there means you've got to have the right to self repair, and so they're releasing documentation. Apple are releasing documentation, and Nikon have started releasing documentation for you to actually self repair if you really want to get in there and do it. So yeah,
And parts as
why
well
not?
with the Nikon parts website.
Yeah.
Right. And can anyone tell me whether I was right that I saw the source code for the ZR somewhere, like I saw it on Nikon Rumors or something? Does anyone else seen that, or was that a fever dream of mine?
I didn't see that,
Okay,
I
but now
didn't
I'm
see
gonna go
it.
look for it.
yeah, go Google, because and I'm like, what's that doing there? And it's like, what's that for? Is it for developers? I wanted to make a video about it, but it's almost above my pay grade, that and I haven't had time, to be honest. Questions are flying along. Everybody, it's just so wonderful to have everybody in the chat. I'm so excited by the level of commentary. Please, if you haven't hit the like button, just accidentally just fall on it. I think we'd love that, because then more people get to see what we're up to. So fall on the like button. That'd be great. And make sure you go and check out everything that these two gentlemen do, because they're amazing and they're a big part of the community, photography in general. You probably can't quite tell, but behind Jeff there, he's basically starting his own retail store in cameras, I think. He's got this entire wall. I don't know, it looks like there might be 50 to 100 cameras there, let alone everyone else. So thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Now, what else is going on? Gents, have you seen any interesting questions in the chat that you'd like to answer? We've got DM Ooze Photography has just jumped in,
D Moots,
saying,
Dave
hey,
Moots.
Dave
Hey,
Moots.
David, how you doing?
Welcome, Dave. We
David.
love your work. Come on down. Ask us a question. QQQ. I got to say, my tummy is starting to get hungry. It's 1:36 and lunch is looming.
I just want to put in my 2 cents on the internal SSD. I don't want
Yes,
to pay extra
please.
for it, so I'm fine with it not being in the camera. And I think more importantly is recording to external SSD. I'd love to see that in the future.
Oh, nice. Nice pickup in the gift shop. There's another thing we want to see in the Z9II right there.
Yeah.
Added to our list, number 27. Woohoo! See, there's endless reasons to get the Z9II. I think we all need to start saving. What can I sell? I'll find
Not
something.
going to like us, Matt, if you send the list. Nikon's not going to like us if you send them
That's
this
okay.
list.
That's okay. We love
They're going
them.
to say,
And
they're going to go,
we
oh,
keep
you
buying
guys
stuff.
are killing us.
Hey, have
I
a
just
look at
like to thank
my
everybody.
stream. My poor little camera's getting so hot that it's starting to get fuzzy. The poor thing. Or maybe that's the chroma key. I don't know. I don't know what that is. Z9 with pre-capture. Absolutely, yes. We talked about that. Thanks, Dave. Photo Lounge is the beginning of the third Saturday. Oh, okay. Randall's talking about something else that I don't know. Greg Wilson's here. Thank you, Greg Wilson.
That's my live stream is Photo Lounge, called Photo Lounge. Is the
very
live
good.
stream I do on the first and third Saturday of every month. And I just
right.
want to shout out and thank everybody that frequents my channel, and who also, I'm sure 99% of you frequent Matt's channel as well all the time. But I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
coming in and offering support to me and Tim, because we're all part of the same group of crazy photography people, and I love you, and I'm happy that you were able to come on and come on Matt's live stream here and support everybody. Did you want to
I
mention
concur with all of that.
Ray's books?
Oh,
Did you want
yes.
to
Thank
mention
you for
Ray's?
reminding me. Ray's books. That's on our list, isn't it? Now, and Ray's here. Ray, don't go. You haven't had dinner. We're just about to talk about your book, and I would like to thank you, Jeff, for reminding me. We're still not at the bottom of our run sheet yet, and we're an hour and a half. We're 90 minutes in. We're going longer than I thought. Raymond Parker. For those that don't know Raymond Parker and I have been close friends. We communicate every day, every second day over chat, all the way from down under to the west coast of Canada. Ray is an absolute gentleman. He's gone through a lot of health issues over the last couple of years. But, you know, Ray's unstoppable. He's still going strong. He's got an absolutely fantastic channel, Raymond Parker Photography. You can see it's written there on the screen. There it is right now. Ray, write something else rather than dinner. Like put your website in the chat so everyone can click on it and then they know it's connected to you. If you're still there and you're still listening, I'd love you to do that. And he's still typing, so he must be there. Anyway, so Ray has a great channel. He's just hit 10,000 subscribers. Awesome stuff, but he's also just put out 2 books. Now, I was going to be fancy and get the PDF and show the first couple of pages, so I might need you guys to fill for me for a second while I go look for that. But we want to show Ray some love. He's been a photog 40 plus years. He's just put out 2 amazing books. Go support him. And whilst I go find that, gents, you can say some lovely things about Ray if you feel so inclined.
Well, absolutely. I mean, Mr. Parker is just a consummate gentleman and nicest guy. I mean, you know, he's like someone you'd like to sit and watch him do a fireside chat. Very knowledgeable about photography, been in a long time, you know, climbed mountains, did all sorts of crazy things that now I couldn't do those. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for a lot of the journeys that he went on and things that he did, and he's just a consummate professional and just someone that you'd love to sit down and have a long talk with. And if you haven't checked out his channel, definitely go check out his channel. You know, it's worth going there, and I don't remember when he started his channel, but it's been a while.
Seven.
So
maybe years ago. I can't remember exactly.
yeah,
I'm just going to flick
go there
over
and check
to his website. Keep talking.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully, you know, Ray will talk more about his books on another video and that are coming out. And I know I watched his last video, and he has quite the setup for printing and doing a lot of stuff. You know, in his own house, I'm assuming, unless he has another building somewhere else. And I guess, Matt, I was gonna like kind of ask you, because I know you've done at least 3 books or 4 books yourself. Do you do? I know. Do you do a lot of your you know, your fine art prints and things like that in house, or do you have someone that you work with, or you know, what's your team consist of? Is it just Matt Irwin and 2 or 3 clones of Matt Irwin, or
Yeah.
how are you set up to handle all this? Because you know you're doing commercial photography, you're doing all these videos, gear reviews, staying on top of, you know, what's coming out with all the brands of cameras, and you've started buying more other brands of cameras to do more in-depth comparisons, you know, and so on and so forth, and the list goes on and on. Do you like get more than 2 hours sleep a day? That's what I'm wondering.
That's a great question, which I will answer all of that. I'll just very quickly, while I've got Ray's book up, this is just the first couple of pages of his beautiful imagery with great stories that Ray is telling. And this wooden roller coaster from Vancouver 1986 is one of Ray's most successful images. It's a beautiful image, and Ray tells an amazing story of how he climbed to the top of this roller coaster using his extraordinary climbing skills to get this shot. So I implore everyone, after we're finished, of course, go check out Ray's website, his stuff, his book, show him some love. And yeah, that's Ray. So Good on you, Ray. Keep up the good work. Now, I will come back to us when I find the thing to click on. Where did it go? Oh my God, it disappeared. I don't know there's so many things on my screen. Maybe I won't come back to us for the time being. We'll just sit with Ray for. How has that disappeared? Well, while I'm looking for that, I will attempt. There it is. I found it. How do I do all of that stuff? Yes, well, as Roy has just said, sleep is overrated. Look, I absolutely love. I'm going to start from this. That I love what I do. I've always loved the idea of the image. When I was about 13 years old, 14 years old, I realized that this thing right here, allowed me to tell stories, crop the world, and create a narrative, create something that was, you know, you might, if you look here, you've got one story. If you look here, you've got it could be a completely different story. And I just got absolutely enamored with that. And back then, like I said, I was 14 or 13 or something. I was watching a lot of movies, as you would in the 1980s it was, and I just fell in love with the moving image and the still image. And I had no plans. I didn't really know. I really wanted to work in the film industry. That was actually what I wanted to do. And here it's very hard to break into the film industry, whereas a photographer, you can just do it yourself. So I kind of still used my visual eye, my sort of cinematic eye, which I think you can still see in all of my still images. I mean, what I love about the cameras we have today is you flick a switch and it's a moving picture, and you flick a switch and it's a still picture. Yeah. And it's the same picture and it's the same exposure and it's the same everything. I mean, how lucky are we? Like, I tell you, when DSLR and then mirrorless came along, I lost my mind because I was using much lower quality cameras to shoot video. And then suddenly it's like, what? I can use all my 35mm glass and get a full frame image. And this used to cost $100,000. And now I'm doing it for, I don't know, $3,000 plus lenses. Like, this is why I constantly say we are spoiled, because we are just spoiled left, right, and center from when any of us, when we were young and we were like, hey, let's get into this thing. And it was expensive. And it was like, we would shoot and then we'd have to wait 3 days to get a sense of what happened. Plus, we had to know what we were doing. I mean, people have forgotten the fact that when you shoot film, you had no idea whether you did a bad job or not. So you had to know your craft. So that's where it started. Just loved everything about it. And to fast forward to today, when it comes to printing, I own my own Epson 60-inch printer, which is an enormous. There is a video, if you go back about 5 or 6 years on my YouTube, about the arrival of that printer. It's called the Epson 2000 in the US. It's got a slightly different name in Australia. It's an amazing printer. It's an archival pigment ink printer. Prior to that, I had the Epson 11880, which was a 60-inch printer. And prior to that, I had the 9800, which was a 44-inch printer. So I was printing in a darkroom from the mid-80s all the way through to 2003. And then I moved over to giclée, the French word for fine droplet, giclée prints, which is what's accepted in fine art photography today. And I moved over to that in 2004 when I purchased my first Epson printer, which was a 7800, which was a freestanding 24-inch, big printer. You could put the 24-inch roll in, which means you could get a 36 by 24-inch print, which is basically a meter. It's a pretty big print. Obviously, the 60-inch, by the time I got to the 60-inch printers, I was printing canvases for people going into their home. So I would be out shooting with a Nikon D3. I've got my 12 megapixels, and we would be shooting a canvas that is 2.3 meters, which is something like 7 feet by 4 feet, say, something in that order. And that's what I was selling in my galleries for quite a long time. Back in that era, I had, at my peak, I had 7 staff. So this was a business manager, people working retail in my galleries, commercial photographer. And basically, as times changed, retail became more difficult. We had the global financial crisis in 2008. And slowly my business contracted and I pivoted more to selling books. Even so, I had my gallery still in the city. And sorry, this is a long story. I'm going as fast as I can. And that's when I produced my first book in 2012, which is called Melbourne: A Love Affair, which was basically 25 years of my photography of Melbourne. I produced 10,000 of those books. They're all gone. I've got about 25 left. And yes, I think, Tim, are you reaching for yours? Before I met
I
Tim,
actually was.
before I met Tim, he bought he bought the slipcase edition, which is absolutely fantastic that he bought that one. That's the special one.
Yeah,
And
I bought the orange cover, but I don't have it
yeah,
on right now. I keep the slip cover elsewhere, but yeah,
so
beautiful
that
book.
book is thank you. So that book was a massive success, and then I went on to do Sydney: A Love Affair, which obviously Sydney is the most famous city here in Australia, and that book continues to sell and has gone very well. Then I did a smaller version of the Melbourne book, so you can maybe I should jump onto my website and then you can see what I'm talking about. Would that be a good idea?
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Why not?
Okay,
And I
let's
think, I
do
mean, I
that.
asked this question because, many of us watch your channel,
Yes.
and I just thought, hey, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit, and so we kind of know who you are and what you've done and how you do it, and to some
Yeah.
extent because we're curious and we're somewhat nosy as well. So
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm happy to be as transparent as I can be about any part of it. So I first started selling my work when I was 19, I think it was, and then I started off at a market stall. That was I was just a kid and still living at home, and it's like, how do you get your story out to the world with very little, financial capabilities? And that's where it all started. And so much came from being in, like, I was at a particular market stall here in Melbourne where about 10,000 people would walk past you every day. And I would get the most astonishing inquiries like, will you direct my film? Will you shoot my wedding? Will you shoot my band? And so on. And so very quickly, I became and this was just me selling my artwork. So, you can see it here on the screen. This image you see here, which you've got a 20-second delay, but you'll see it shortly, is of a black and white tram, similar to a cable car or whatever, going down one of the major streets of Melbourne. This image was taken in 1992 when I still really had no idea where my journey would take me. It's been a very popular image over the years. It's so popular it ended up on the cover of one of the books. You just never know where these things are going to come from, but that's where it all started. Of course, I'm getting a phone call. Let me just say I'll call you later. Sorry about that. And I've forgotten what I was trying to say there, but yes. So it's been a very, very long journey, and today, obviously YouTube didn't exist for me up until 7 years ago. So the first almost 30 years of my photography journey had nothing to do with YouTube. And it was just being a commercial photographer, running my own galleries, selling my own artwork. Yeah, that's where I was going. Selling my own artwork has been the biggest component of my business. So whether it was through my galleries or through selling books, I used to sell to Borders. I don't know if Borders is still in the US, but I used to sell to Borders, but they went broke here in Australia. Not because of me, by the way, but just for bad business management. And at my peak, I sold to 100 retailers here in Melbourne and general Australia. But the biggest thing that happened to my business was COVID, and it really had a massive impact. It meant I shut my galleries, and a lot of the retailers that I used to sell to just didn't exist anymore. So, but I'm still doing it. So I've still got a warehouse. I've still got the printer. I still create artwork. It's just not on the same scale. It's just me now. My last employee left just after the end of COVID. He was running my city store up until 2022. I don't know if I'll ever do retail again. Retail is very expensive. It's getting more and more expensive, and it's very high risk. And obviously we live in a world where we're up against Amazon. Like things like Amazon were not in this country before.
Yeah.
I think the value of photography has been a bit devalued, as in what will people pay for a photograph, because they've got an iPhone that does a really good job, and they see a squillion photographs on Instagram and everywhere else, and some of them are very high quality. So I think our place in the world is a little bit eroded, and so, you know, I've really enjoyed the YouTube journey, and I'm happy with it being a larger portion of my life than it was, you know, when I started this. When did I start it serious? I started it quite seriously just before COVID kicked off, interestingly. I was posting like 2 or 3 videos a month for a couple of years, and then I'm like, no, I got to do more. And it was 2019 that I decided to up the ante, and then not long after that we went into lockdowns. And obviously in lockdowns, I couldn't do anything else. I wasn't allowed to work. We were... And I don't know if the audience knows, but Melbourne was one of the most shut down cities in the world. So we were locked down for something like not quite a year, but almost a year out of 2 years. And so that was literally stuck within a 5-kilometer radius, not allowed to travel, not allowed to work because I wasn't considered an essential worker. And so, you know, that changed the shape of my business. It changed the shape of my input on YouTube. And in a way, my YouTube world sort of exploded out of that, and that was just me pivoting. I was never a guy that could just, okay, I'm not allowed to work, so I'm just going to watch Netflix. That wasn't me. So if you go back to that era, I was putting out 3 or 4 videos a week, and I've probably now dropped back to more to 2 to 3 or 2. Not in the last little while because I've had some family tragedies, but and I was overseas for a month, but I'll be getting back to that sort of cadence. So I've covered a whole lot of stuff there, Jeff. If you wanted to dive into any particular details, I'm all here before I go sugar low.
I don't want to wear you down, and maybe someday you'll grace us with your presence on my channel, and we can
I would love that.
dive into it a little bit more. But I want you to be able to put some food in your stomach, because I think you're probably hurting right about now.
Well, you never know. If you see me just pass out, then you know it's true.
I wanted to add that you went from a non-essential worker.
Yeah, I'm non-essential.
You went from a non-essential worker to an essential worker on YouTube, because the quality of your content is just phenomenal.
Oh, thank you, Tim. That's very kind. Well, I got to say, I love it. And it's really hard. You know, we all know when we get negative comments and people, you know, they throw their shade or they throw their mud, and it's like, dude, do you have any idea what it takes to get 10 minutes of high quality YouTube so you can sit back with your coffee and enjoy it? And you know, some of them, you're lucky. And like the last one I did might have been 6 hours or whatever, the one on the new recipes. But other ones, like the lens that's coming out, a really exciting lens that's coming out next week that everyone's going to be pumped about. You know, I'll probably spend, look at Jeff, he's excited. You will be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're giving it away. Well, you don't have to wait long, my friend. A new lens, it's very exciting. You heard it here first. You know, that video might take 30 hours, you know, and I don't include the shooting when I say that, because I love the shooting so much that's just a joy. But I'm just talking about being on the tools, you know, putting it all together. So, and we all know, because we're in the space, the financial, you know, it's not about financial returns. It's only the very top channels that actually, you know, are kind of, you know, making a living out of it. And so, you know, any support now that sadly, we haven't talked about the fact that Con's leaving Grays. Now that the coffee fund has stopped there on Con's, maybe we should start our coffee funds.
Start a
there
coffee
you go.
fund.
Well,
anything that
if you look behind Jeff, if you look behind Jeff, his backdrop is kind of Grays of Myrtle Beach behind Jeff right there.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I tell you, we'll have to have an episode where you go through your, you know, your top 57 favorite cameras, because I doubt you can limit it to any less. They're all your favorites.
You know what? I started putting a list together in case you asked me about it. And I said, you know what? They're all my favorites, because, you know, part of the reason why I did it, well, one is I I made sure I had every SLR I ever had when I was a kid. Every single one. If I didn't still have it, I bought it. And
Nice.
then, I'm looking for historical significant cameras, or rare cameras, things like that. And it just blossomed. And now I just look at it like I've got history behind me. I've got something that it means a lot to me because they all have a story. It's just like a picture. Every picture has a story. Every camera has a story. And I just look behind me and smile every day when I'm up here and I say, I got history behind me. I put those cameras in my hand, and I got cameras from the 1800s. I mean, I put
Wow.
those cameras in my hand and I just say, God, how smart these people were, in the 1800s, in the early 1900s. I can't believe some of the stuff they did. And I just sit there and I just enjoy it. I just soak it all in, and it charges my batteries. It really does. And of course, my wife says, one more camera. I got a shirt that says, I'm only going to buy one more camera, and then it says, not really, or something like that. Because my wife says, don't buy any more cameras. But I'm preserving part of history, and Tim's like Tim's just waiting for me to, fall off a motorcycle or something, and then he's going to swoop in and get them all.
You'll buy your collection. I'll give you a bulk
Oh,
price. Bulk price.
he is my wife's first contact. If I ever,
Okay.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. And so and
So Jeff, I
he
think what
always
you're
jokes.
telling
He
us,
says
what you're
he
telling us
says you're
here
doing
is
all the work for me. He says you're collecting everything. I just got to wait, and then I have a collection.
alrighty. So if you mysteriously fall off the perch, we've just got to check Tim's whereabouts on the 5 hours
Yeah,
before
yeah,
and 5 hours after,
Yeah,
just in case.
yeah.
I
Although I
suppose
don't
that makes
believe
me
you're in the same
suspect
part
number
of the
one.
USA, are you?
No,
No,
but I
but
do
his
go
his
that way a
dad
couple
lives
times a
a
year to
couple
visit.
hours away. Yeah, yeah. We get together couple weeks out of the year and shoot together. So it's been, and we only connected because YouTube is special because being on Chuck's live stream, and that's how I met Tim. And then his dad lives, literally, only a couple hours away, and we've hit it off, and we're good friends. We talk all the time, and he's like, I call him my younger brother from a different mother. Uh,
Nice.
and we just think a lot the same, and we've had a lot of similar life experiences and whatnot, and we just get along really well. And I always look forward to when he gets a chance to come down here and whatnot. And I've been blessed where there's been some people like in the chat on the channel that have actually come and visited me while they were on vacation in Myrtle Beach, and had husband and wife from Germany that came and visited my wife and I, and we went shooting pictures and went out to dinner and got to meet wonderful, wonderful people. And oh my God, I mean, life is good. I mean, these people are fantastic. The people that are on your channel, the people that are on my channel, they're all fantastic people, and they all have great stories, and they all take great pictures.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
fantastic.
we're crazy photo people. That's part of the DNA. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I was so happy to, meet Bobby in Singapore, meet the Greys of Westminster. I got to meet Becky Ancon. I still haven't had time to put the videos together that I made with them, right? So, and of course, I got to meet Rishi, and next on my list is to meet you guys, to head to the States at some point in time. Maybe I can't get in there at the moment. I don't know, because they want to look at your social media accounts now if you come from Australia. But to you guys, Ray, Seth, lots of people in the States. It's huge. So I can't wait to come there at some point in the future. All right, gentlemen, but I think we could keep going forever, but let's stick a pin in it
Yeah.
I'm amazed at the 2 hour mark. We are just shy of the 2 hour mark. This may well be the longest stream that I've ever done. I can't say enough how honored I am to have two gentlemen of the Nikon community here join me around the world. We've had a very robust chat, and the live chat has been very robust. It's just so wonderful to have you guys here, And this is the first time, right? This is the first time we do this, not the last time. Now, someone's just given us a super sticker. Thank you, Randall. That is very, very kind of you. Let me add that there. That's beautiful. Thank you. Waving banner. I don't know. We'd see that on YouTube. I can't see it here in Ecamm, but thank you. Thank you so much. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. You will come back, won't you? You'll join me again another time, please?
Absolutely,
It's been
absolutely, and thank you for the invite. Very gracious of you to allow us to appear on your channel, and
Not at all.
yeah, just
Not at all.
much appreciated. Had a great time. Maybe next time we can keep an eye on chat. There's so many people in chat; it's really hard to keep up. A lot of
Yeah,
questions. So maybe next time we can focus on that a little bit more. But very enjoyable and much appreciated. Thank you.
look, we're all the same.
I
We're all the same humans.
can't thank you enough. It's an honor. Uh, watch you all the time. Have the utmost respect for you. You're a class act. I wish everybody was a class act in the YouTube environment. But you stand out in the crowd, my friend. And when Tim says, "Oh, you want to go on Matt's channel?" I started shaking, man. I was nervous as all hell. I really was. I'm like, what, me? I'm just a little, well, I'm not a little person physically, but I'm like, oh, a little guy on YouTube. It's like, what the heck does he want me on his show for? But my God, what a pleasure. And man, anytime. And, anytime, definitely. It was a lot of fun. I mean, and when we were doing the trial, to see if the software worked and everything. And I mean, after like 30 seconds, I was calmed right down. I mean, you're just so, you are the person we see on your show. You're not like, oh, I'm this way when I'm on YouTube, but when I'm not on YouTube, I'm somebody else. I mean, you are who you are, and it's fantastic. It was nothing but a pleasure. I can't thank you enough.
Very humbling. Thank you, Jeff.
The
Very
man, the myth,
humbling.
the legend, all in line.
Yeah.
You've brought a tear to my eye. I'm going to go get a sanger, a sandwich. Gentlemen, thank you. I love this community. I love that you're part of it. I love that you guys are out there. And season's greetings, Merry Christmas, or whatever it is that you celebrate. There goes my camera again. I think that's my cue to go. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
And take care. And we'll see you all very soon. And I will be back next week with another mystery guest. All right. I'm going to hit the finish
Merry
button.
Christmas.
Bye, everybody.
Merry Christmas. Bye,
All
everybody.
right, bye everyone.